Hi there, and welcome to this presentation of the Industrial Revolution. These are notes 11.1a. This is the first of 4 sets of notes dealing with this. And hi, this is Mr. Marks. I'm going to give you just a few moments if you want to pause so you can look over the key terms and ideas. All of these should be in your notes for today. This will include ideas from all 4 of the presentations. This presentation largely deals with how the Industrial Revolution came to be. And one of the questions that comes up with this is what was life like before the Industrial Revolution? For us to fully understand this, you need to realize that there are several revolutions when it comes to this. A revolution is any massive change that occurs, something which changes the way that people live their lives. And there were a couple of revolutions that came before the Industrial Revolution, and I'm not talking about wars in countries or those sorts of things. I'm talking about something that significantly changed people's lives no matter what country they were in. And the first of these is usually referred to as the first agricultural revolution. This happened way back when. We actually talked about it at the beginning of last semester when we talked about moving from the Paleolithic, the Old Stone Age, to the Neolithic, the New Stone Age. The first agricultural revolution made it so people were able to farm the way that we think of farms. This is the two main things which had to be learned to make it so people turned from hunter-gatherers to farmers was they had to be able to domesticate animals. That means making animals do what we need them to do, basically doing the works of humans. And we needed humans needed to understand how to set seeds into the ground. Set aside land for farming instead of just gathering what spread naturally. That was that first agricultural revolution. It turned us from largely a hunter-gatherer society to one that was based largely off of farming, and this is how it lasted for thousands of years. But about the time that we're talking about, another revolution had occurred. Now, this wasn't just before the Industrial Revolution, but this will lead to the Industrial Revolution happening. This is often called the second agricultural revolution. The big thing with there were many big things that lent themselves to this, but probably one of the bigger things was they had a better control of creating the land. This was primarily seen with the Dutch invention of dikes. Much of the Netherlands is actually below sea level, and in order to create more farmland, they actually had to push back the ocean by using a system of dams and dikes, different things that hold back the water in order to keep the land dry. That made it for very good soil. This has been stuff that had been under the seawater for quite some time and had absorbed quite a bit of nutrients. It was also very easy to irrigate. Along with this came this idea of fertilizer. Now, fertilizer has been used forever, but this comes about as a more systematic approach. They're starting to look at what is it in fertilizer that makes it so that plants grow better. What are things that you can add to it to make it so plants grow better? And which plants respond to what kinds of this? A lot of this comes about because we have the scientific revolution. Again, another completely different way of thinking. Inventions like the seed drill, which is over here on the right-hand side, that started to take a lot of the time out of people's hands and made it so that they could do things much easier. More importantly, this made it so that people were able to farm more land. Instead of having one farmer producing enough for 2 or 3 or 4 people, you're having one farmer producing enough to feed a dozen people, and that's a pretty significant change. Another big change in this time, though, is the way that they viewed land. Now we start to see enclosures. Up until this time, land was largely under the feudal system was open. Land was fought over usually between rivers or mountains or other natural boundaries that were established by the kings or the nobles that had control of the area. But on that noble's land itself, the peasants were able to pretty much farm wherever they could. This once a area didn't look like it was producing that well, they could just move on to another one. People that were herding goats or sheep or other sorts of animals were able to just move from one spot to the other without it too much of a problem. But as the population started to increase and land becomes more scarce, a lot of these nobles started fencing off their land. This makes it so you create something called an enclosure. This is the process of taking over and fencing off land that was formerly just shared by peasants. This increases the output of the land quite a bit because now you can say, well, this year this is the only type of crop that's allowed to be in here, and this year nobody can plant anything because we need a chance for the soil to rejuvenate, that sort of thing. This led to increased profits from the land and again a better food production. But the downside was peasants couldn't just go and farm on any land that they wanted to. That meant that a good deal of them had to move out. They weren't able to just live off the land anymore and were forced to move into cities and to other urban areas. And that sudden movement of a lot of people that had been living on farms into the cities where they were now forced off that farmland creates a population explosion in those cities and a growing workforce that will fuel this industrial revolution. Not only that, due to this agricultural revolution, due to the other things that we mentioned, this population explosion had a few other things that were behind it. We had a declining death rates, largely due to better medicine in the time. We were seeing new innovative technologies that made it so the population just in Britain would move from 120 million to 190 million. There was better hygiene, better sanitation. That largely got rid of the problems with the plague that they were having. They had doctors that were using anesthetics and were treating smallpox, things that had caused huge population declines before. With people living longer and children being able to survive being a child, child mortality was way down during this time. With there being more people and those people living longer, suddenly we're in a perfect situation in order to, well, have a revolution. And that's what the next presentation is going to talk about.